And Westminster, or what's left of Westminster at a time when Parliament's been dissolved, is all abuzz about what on earth Nigel Farage will say later this afternoon.
Yes, it's not like Nigel Farage, is it, to, do this sort of thing. He likes to leave people on tenterhooks, doesn't he?
To dangle the tantalising prospect of whatever this announcement might be in the forefront of people's minds. It certainly has sort of cleared the grid, to use Westminster speak. The Tories wanted to talk about their changes to the Equality Act with regard to gender, and the Labour Party wants to talk about its commitment to the Trident nuclear deterrent.
Yep.
But, frankly, those two stories have now been blown out of the water because everyone is awash with speculation. Everyone is awash with speculation. I'm sure you at home are too. We want to know whether you think it's a good idea if Nigel Farage does, in fact, announce today at 4 o'clock that he will be standing for the Reform Party. He's flirted with the idea. He told us that actually, yes, he was planning to. But then when the election was called so suddenly, he said he didn't have enough time to prepare, to campaign properly for a seat and to win it. But perhaps, just maybe, he's changed his mind. I mean, what else could an emergency general election announcement be, Tom? Well, I have to say, given all of the speculation, giving the fevered pitch of sort of people speculating which specific seat he might be going for. Is it Thanet South? Is it Clacton? Is it Hartlepool? Given all of that, he's got to say he's standing now, because if he doesn't, it will be the biggest damp squib of the general election. He'll look very, very silly. Yes, and on the BBC's Question Time the other day, Piers Morgan was goading him a little, wasn't he, on why he wasn't standing and saying, oh, you've lost so many times and all of this. Do you think this is all down to Piers Morgan? Who knows? Could Piers Morgan actually have inadvertently reignited what would be perhaps the second or third comeback for Nigel Farage? I'm sure Nigel would reject that. Of course, he would say, I don't care what Piers Morgan has to say. I imagine that would be his response to that. But who knows? I mean, there's been a lot. He's been out and about on the campaign. Perhaps he's got the bug for it and thought, actually, you know what? There is enough support for me out there in the country, in specific areas, Clacton maybe, that I can do this. I can do this. So anyway, we will bring you that. But should we get the view of political commentator Peter Spencer? Peter, you've heard us with our suggestions of what might come at 4 o'clock when it comes to Nigel Farage's emergency general election announcement. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are I wouldn't just put a pony on him standing as an MP. I think I'd put a ton on it, to be perfectly honest. Ooh. Yeah. I mean, you're quite right with what you've just said, which is that he's not particularly fond of the damp squib stratagem, and there is a logic to it that the opinion polls are consistently showing a rise in support for the Reform Party, and of course we've got a mega poll out this afternoon which could well confirm precisely that. And so my thinking is about his thinking is that he indeed does plan to stand in one of the seats that you've mentioned, doesn't really matter which, and stand a reasonable chance of getting in. And I think what he's actually doing is looking beyond the election. If the opinion polls are to be believed at all, we're likely to see a seriously depleted Conservative Party, and one which will be absolutely at war with itself. And so there is, I mean, I've postulated the possibility before that we could even get an SDP-style split in the Conservative Party in the months to come. Now, if that were to happen and there were to be a right-wing faction, it is perfectly possible that he could be an MP standing for the Reform Party. He could then decide to switch, as people do from time to time, join the Tory Party and find himself the leader of a faction which is obviously a right-wing faction, and suddenly find himself the leader effectively of the Conservative Party.
And people have been speculating for a long, long time that is actually Nigel Farage's big goal in life, that you can always do something more serious or more profound within a larger organisation. It was what Donald Trump did with the Republican Party. He could have stood as an independent. He did once try to stand for the Reform Party in the United States, which was a significant party in the 1990s. But, of course, he decided in the end that going for the bigger party and changing it from within was the more effective political strategy. Do you think that perhaps Nigel is learning from his friend Donald Trump?
I dare say he has read a great many runes, of which one that is clearly one. But I mean, increasingly, as this election drama, hyperdrama unfolds, it is becoming clearer and clearer that the Conservative Party, after the election, unless all the polls are completely wrong, which is always possible, but unlikely, that there really will be immense turbulence within the Conservative Party after the general election. We note, actually, interestingly, that Rishi Sunak has said he's going to remain as an MP throughout the next Parliament and not actually swan off to Silicon Valley and make himself.
He has to say that, doesn't he, Peter? He has to say that.
He sort of does. Yes, he sort of does.
But with Nigel, now he put out a statement. What was it? Only last week. That saying that he essentially wanted to prioritise the elections over in the United States. Could what happened at the court in New York have something to do with this? Perhaps he doesn't want to put his eggs in that Donald Trump basket. Now he is a convicted felon.
I mean, who knows? I mean, most certainly the impression I get from stateside is that the vast bulk of Donald Trump's support base actually buy into his his claim that is all totally rigged, and in fact that they therefore continue to stand by him. But against that, there is a possibility that some will say, look, this is a red line cross, basically, and so it could tilt the other way. And it could even be that Nigel Farage is thinking the same thing. You think, look, this guy, and remember there was a judge years ago in a previous court case described him as a rapist. And so we now have a rapist and a criminal. And it could be that Nigel Farage thought, yeah, choose your friends with some care. Maybe this guy does cross the line. Maybe I'll focus on my own stuff. But I come back to it. Essentially, it's because of the fact that the opinion polls give reform such a big boost, and the Conservatives look to be in so much trouble that he's thinking, Jesus, I really am going to take a chance this time.
Yeah, everyone was expecting a big reform squeeze. The Tories have announced policy after policy aimed at reform voters today on gender, but also national service, the triple lock plus, all of this stuff aimed at that voter group. Yeah. And that reform vote isn't going down. If anything, it's starting to tick up a little bit, perhaps. Peter Spencer, always appreciate your commentary. Thank you very much for joining us on the programme.